Species.
Do you remember when you were a kid and that feeling you had when you knew the ice cream truck man was coming?
Yes.
I found a way to recapture it. When you know the beer delivery man is on his way.
All right, welcome to Origin of Species. My name is Scott, and I have here on my laptop Steve, my good friend. And yeah, you had some beer delivered. How was that?
So before I tell you about my beer delivery, just want to tell you also how excited I am about our special guest that we have joining today. Comedian Brian Bates from Nashville, Tennessee is going to be joining us on this episode. I've had the chance to see him live. Great comedian, great guy. He's hilarious, and he's going to have a very good insight into our topic. But before we get to that, I just want to tell you how exciting it was to have beer delivered to my neighborhood.
Yeah.
It was wonderful. So, and I sometimes we're facetious about I'm facetious at least about who I'm speaking about, but I will go ahead and be very open that this was Hardywood Brewery here in Richmond, Virginia. That we during the recent stay at home, my neighbors and I, we're trying to find a way to stay sane, and we knew that Hardywood would deliver. So we got together, put a big order in, and there was that message that they had left and they were on their way. And I spent the rest of the afternoon as I worked hard, of course, because I'm working remotely, but also made sure I was checking my email, my personal email very frequently to see when the Hardywood man would arrive.
You look really happy right now. Like
I am.
I don't know if you can see your face in the recording, but you look very like it might be the happiest I've seen you in a really long time.
It's that sort of face you would have if I could remember when I was a kid. I knew the ice cream man was going to come, and I think the big difference is when the ice cream man used to come by, I never had any money. At least this time I knew I was going to get something out of it. It was going to pay off for me.
So was it you or it was a group of guys? I think you said.
Yeah, a group of guys on the court. Yeah. The mayor, the Italian, didn't participate this time. I have a TBD nickname neighbor. We all got together and put in for that. Yeah. And it was very good. Thank you, Hardywood. And very reasonable fee. Wasn't one of those things too that, like sometimes it's kind of like, if you go to the airport and you buy a toothbrush and you see how much it is, if you would have planned better, you wouldn't be there buying it. Which, by the way, I think should be CVS's nickname, or like a byline or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Catchphrase.
Yeah. But they know there's a price point where they can do it for a certain, for
if
everything.
If you planned better, you wouldn't be doing it. But Hardywood, a very reasonable fee, and we're very happy. I was expecting, I guess, not to be negative, but I am me. I have to kind of point out, something that didn't finish the experience. The service was great. The beer was wonderful. They were very prompt, very thorough in getting out. But, when you order craft beer, you're kind of hoping that, it would be the equivalent of the ice cream man truck. I thought it'd be some giant like Hardywood truck with a guy with a mighty verdant beard, that, had many hops and other IPAs like just stuck in it.
Right. He was wearing like a lumbersexual outfit.
Yeah.
But instead of what was it, like a Geostorm or something?
It was like a very small man in a Prius.
But that's even worse.
That was, and he looked a little flustered. Like I think we weren't the only people he was dropping things off today, too. But then again, if you think about it, was the last time you saw the ice cream man and thought to yourself, that guy's got it together. This day's a good day for him.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I do wonder though if after this, we have talked about what are some of the innovations that could happen. Mm-hmm. I mean, the delivery stuff, it was already sort of happening with the Uber Eats and the DoorDash and all that. But just specifically the beer, and maybe they will get some sort of outfit, like you said, beer delivery guy. But it is only a matter of time before it becomes creepy. It'll start as cool. And I would like to think that the ice cream man was initially not as creepy as he's now become. But
I think we're all fairly confident to say that the ice cream man also had a second stream of income from other things he probably sold from his truck, or that could just be a Cheech and Chong movie I've seen. I'm not sure.
Well, I thought you were going to say another stream of income because he's like a magician on the weekends or something.
All right, let's not say anything disparaging.
About the ice. Yeah.
About the ice cream man.
Yeah. Well, how are you holding up though, man? You doing all right? You got your beer, you're getting your deliveries.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to stick to normal drinking schedule, which would be on weekends after a hard week of work. So I'm definitely got that down so far, but doing pretty good. But unfortunately, fortunately for everyone, as this is an audio podcast, unlike plug for Panic at the Costco,
Yeah.
Scott and his good friend Aaron's new video podcast. Our podcast is on audio, so I look like that I worked out in the year 1998 and just woke up and got out of bed. Pretty much is my outfit. Someone had a meme on the running around that I thought was pretty good, that showed a picture from the Road Warrior. It said, what we thought the apocalypse would look like. And then the picture under it was basically someone dressed up exactly like me. And, this was the apocalypse outfit that we chose instead.
It's funny because Adam Carolla has a recurring bit about the future and how there's no denim in the future. Somehow, like every movie there, somehow denim has been banished, and it's usually leather and spikes and on their shoulder blades, very welcome. What is it? The Terror Dome. I almost said the Pleasure Dome, but yeah, it really is just sweatpants. I feel like today I wore actual pants, non-sweatpants, because I find myself having to do loads of sweatpants, and it's like, and I don't even have that many sweatpants, but it's like I have my sweats. So that's kind of.
You did remind me of something of when the beer delivery man came. I wanted to make sure I looked good for him, and I thought about because I hadn't had much human interaction, like going full put on work clothes. Which I did. I thought that might be a bit much, but I did put on my good sweatshirt. That's the level of formality I've descended to, is if I'm going to interact with someone, I'm going to need to make sure at least I'm wearing my good sweatshirt, my public facing sweatshirt.
Yeah. I'm currently, so before we started this, we had said, hey, maybe we'll do another Instagram live. And then I think we both just looked at each other, and I realized I'm wearing a very old Champion sweatshirt that I didn't get at A&N, but could have. I'm not sure where this came from, but they said, now let's stick to audio. But I had an idea. So if you do tune in to Panic at the Costco, I think I'm going to surprise my co-host with our next one, or whoever is joining us, and wearing a full suit. I almost did it last time, but I think that's going to be my gimmick of at least once, just getting dressed, as nice as I can, as if I'm going on an interview,
right? And
just show up that way, since it is a video podcast. Because
you could do the TV weatherman thing and just put the, waist up, dress up, right, and then,
Well, yeah, that's a good point. I think that's really what I will do. I will not actually have the pants, although I have seen people getting busted for that, or I don't know if it's staged or not, but I don't know if you've seen that, where people are on a Zoom call or a Skype call or whatever, and the meeting's over and the thing's still running. They get up. It seemed pretty legit, but
yeah, if it hasn't happened, it probably will.
Yeah, for sure. So, but yeah, we're all getting really comfortable with this situation, and who knows how long it'll go. Sweatpants is definitely, a big deal, getting deliveries. But speaking about getting comfortable, I think tonight, Steve, we're talking about weddings and
we're talking about marriage. So talk about feeling comfortable or wearing sweatpants. I guess these things all kind of come together.
I feel like that's true.
With marriage.
Yeah, when you first are married, I don't know how you feel, do you stay dressed up? Do you feel like, I don't want to be a bum around this person? But at a certain point, I mean, I know you've been married for quite a few years. You don't worry as much about stuff like that. But
I kind of did a tiered approach. So one of the things I did is, people talk about the freshman 15, or you get kind of fat and happy. What I did, which wasn't the best move, was I decided to get fat right before we got married. So I got that out of the way. So all my pictures, it looks like, to be honest with you, and you've seen the picture in my house, it looks like one of the first lesbian weddings in America. That I look like a very happy Katie Lang, who's just had everything, work out for her.
I will say, so I've seen the picture, and I think it's a nice picture. Right. I've never thought about it that way. Yeah, and when you said that, and going also with the episode where you had mentioned going to the barber and asking for the small town lesbian.
Yeah.
I immediately was like, holy crap. In that picture, but I specifically thought about Katie Lang. There is a Katie Lang vibe to that.
And I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say though, I think, we've talked about how tan fat is better than, I don't know, you have some saying about.
Yeah. Even fat looks good, or everything looks better tan.
Right. And there's also a thing too about being young. And so, I mean, I can picture the photo. I would never sit there and think you look fat, but I mean, you're a little heavier than you are now. But being young is kind of like, you looking back, you're kind of like, oh no, you'd rather be.
No, you haven't seen this lately. Yeah.
Maybe I haven't, but maybe I'm thinking about a different picture. So speaking of old pictures, like we do have old pictures of each other, which, grew up together, as people know if you listen to the show. And actually, Bill Cannell, who's been on Personal Records podcast.
Bill Cannell.
Oh, dang, it is Bill Cannell. My bad. I messed it up on the show too. I wish that was a Barry Popick thing. Yeah, I wish it, but I actually did. Sorry, Bill. But he had reached out and said, hey, do you have any old pics of Steve? And I'm like, I do. What would Steve be cool with and not cool with? And like, I don't want to spoil the surprise. I want to come through for Bill. I provided one picture. And you haven't seen this yet.
No, I heard they did a quiz about me on like a department-wide phone call, but I haven't seen the picture. What picture is it?
It's the one, the old basketball, JV basketball, or it might be varsity, but it's the basketball.
Oh, okay. I can deal with that.
I figured you'd be okay with that. I have some other ones, like if I really, like that I could do that you'd be, like I have one that I'll just describe, which is from the 2000, when did we start hanging out again? 2004, 2005, chili cook-off. Yeah. Where you are, I want to say wearing maybe homemade jean shorts. Or maybe some khaki shorts. Definitely no shirt, because I remember that. And you're on a mechanical bull. Yeah. And it's not a flattering picture, but it would have been amazing. But of course, I did not do that. So
well, thank you. That's good. And I look like I ate all the chili at the chili cook-off. I look like the most thorough judge that's ever been at a chili cook-off in that picture.
It's not flattering, but man, we had a lot of fun at the old chili cook-off. I believe we met. That might have been a different one where we met. Was it Blue Oyster Cult?
Blue Oyster Cult was there, but that's where we met. Our good friend Blacksoul Rose.
Was that the first time we saw Blacksoul?
Yeah. That was the first time we saw him. So that was a seminal night for us.
It was a good night, but anyway, so we got a little off track here, but I'm just thinking about I'm glad we're talking about this. I hadn't brought it up, but all the pictures I could have provided, I told him this is the only one I could find. I had more. Now, I think you would have probably been okay with one that we've referenced on this show before. I think it's college and you're laying out with your pink shorts, but again, I think you're shirtless.
I am, but I'm hairless in that too, so it gives me a little bit of cover because I'm much hairier now.
And I was like 80% that you'd be cool with it, but I said, you know what? The line of sharing a picture of Steve with no shirt on, even though that one is more flattering, because I think if I want to describe in too much detail, it might get weird, but I mean, definitely tan and you're in college, you got that college vibe going.
Just before I got married and got fat, also. So I'm still in good shape.
Before you got fat and got married, but then now you said you got a little chubby, you got married, but then man, you're looking great now, as we've said before.
Thank you.
Not
I appreciate
fat.
that.
And maybe we will put this out on a video podcast just to prove a point, but maybe not. So
maybe not.
Don't worry. We'll let you know. Go to Species.com and if we ever put one out, you'll see it there. But all right.
So see if Scott and I are getting along or not by the type of pictures of each other we put out in there.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Before I get going back on marriage, I do need to say this, just in case Katie Lang ever listens to this episode. The picture of me, it looks like if Katie Lang was young and also had really let herself go, by the way, because she's always been in good shape. Wonderful singer, beautiful voice. And we share similar tastes in haircuts, but the best way I can describe it is like if Katie Lang was kind of down on her luck and it was just like, hey, Katie, do you want to go out and, run around a little bit? She's like, no, I'm going to have another Molson and I'm just going to sit here and watch football. That's what she looked like, or that's what I look like in that picture. So
I feel like you're describing the Indigo Girls now, though.
No.
Sorry, Indigo Girls, but you're no Katie Lang when it comes to the looks.
But their hair is way too complicated for me to handle.
That's true. All right, Steve. So what are we starting with tonight? Yeah, marriage.
Well, now that painted, I think, a very flattering picture of myself, and also it was like to be married to me early on. I'll describe how my wife obviously still felt after we got married, and that is head over heels.
Oh my goodness, I'm so glad we're doing this one. I That's a good one. I don't know the answer to this one or what this
Okay.
means, but I know your wife, and yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Every
And by the way, I'm not recording from Australia. So far I haven't made her angry at me, but so much of what I've run up about our personal life on here.
Oh, that's right, Australia, your big getaway. By the way,
Hmm.
Katie is Katie Lang Australian?
No, she's Canadian.
Oh, okay. I just knew she wasn't American, but
Hmm.
so head over heels. What'd you
Head over
find out
heels.
about that?
So head over heels means to be often used to describe how someone feels when they're in love. You often will hear it as head over heels in love, and it's so excited that I guess you're knocked down or you're turning cartwheels. And one of the things we'll talk about
Mm.
with this term is how it almost, in a way, doesn't make sense. Heels over head kind of makes sense if you've been knocked down.
But your head is already over your heels, I guess,
Exactly.
right? But
Yeah.
that's weird because I've never actually thought about that. You know,
Mhm.
because you do kind of picture something topsy turvy.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I'm gonna tell you a little bit about the history, talk about this term, where it came from, also tied into the state of Tennessee, which also ties in for later in our episode where we're going to have a very special guest, comedian Brian Bates from Nashville, Tennessee, is going to join us for a segment to talk a little bit about his thoughts on marriage.
I'm
So
very excited about that.
so head over heels, is this a term? Obviously we've both heard of it. Is this something you've ever used, or do you use it?
I'd put this, right around in the middle, not one I use every day,
Hmm.
not one that I never use. I'll mention it every once in a while. Usually if I'm telling a story about some old relationship or somebody else, I will use it. Say, oh my gosh, you could just tell they were head over heels. So I'd say, yeah, I use it
Yep.
sometimes.
So I'm going to start with a discussion I read in Quora. With
Quora guy. Is it
Yeah,
Quora guy?
it
Okay.
is not Quora guy, but
No.
I
Okay.
think this term will help his discussion will kind of help phrase it. So he discusses how it's first used. There's a gentleman by the name of Anthony Fordham, who is a science and technology journalist from Sydney, Australia. So I don't know if our friend Alan still listens to us, but if he does, maybe he knows Anthony Fordham. Maybe they're like next door neighbors in Sydney. Who knows? But in Quora, he had Mr. Fordham had a pretty long essay about the origin of this, and he goes back to the where it's first cited. So Anthony Fordham reads a quote from Herbert Lawrence's Contemplative Man in 1771, and the citation is this: "He gave him such a violent involuntary kick in the face as drove him head over heels."
This sounds like something you'd say while watching a football game. Kick him in the face.
It would.
Violent kick in the face. Head over heels. I like
Maybe
that. So
that's why I like it so much. So then he kind of goes on a rant here, as this begins with violence. And I don't know if he's trying to make some sort of statement about as this eventually becomes to, mean to fall in love. But as he discusses, points out the obvious, what I think is the big problem with this one, if it is a problem, is head over heels doesn't make a lot of sense as heels over head would. If you got kicked in the
kicked in the
face,
face. Yeah.
your heels will then be over your head.
Right.
But we're gonna, as I alluded to earlier, Tennessee is gonna help adjust this, and we'll see why heels over head didn't stick. So from there, Herbert Lawrence's Contemplative Man did some research on this. Couldn't find too much on it, and I will actually spend some time to go find some more. But what I did find on it was very interesting. It comes up several times in books that reference important literature of the 18th century, but its full title is what excites me the most. As you know, I
You
love
love
a
full.
love a good book title, and I
Yeah.
love how when a title has an "or" in it. So the full title is not The Contemplative Man. The full title is The Contemplative Man, or The History of Christopher Crabbe, Esquire of North Wales.
I like that.
Yeah.
Is crab CRABBE?
No,
Dang it.
not like you were thinking like Shoppy.
Yeah, I just think
Yeah,
that would add a little extra. I don't know, a little sauce to that,
it
man.
would. Maybe it's because he's Welsh and they didn't want to pay for the other letters in it. That's for my friend. Sorry.
Yeah.
As longtime listeners know, I have a Welsh hitting friend, so I apologize to any Welsh that are listening to me, especially if they're an Esquire of North Wales. So you would think with a great title like that, there'd be a lot more information. I did spend a decent amount of time trying to track down more about the contemplative man or the history of Christopher Crabbe, Esquire of North Wales. And I think I've pointed out before, a lot of times when you get the or, it's generally to put something racist in there. So it
Yeah.
doesn't seem at face to have that, but maybe this guy hates the Welsh, and naming somebody Christopher Crabbe doesn't seem like a good start to prove that he really likes the Welsh.
Right.
So that starts as head over heels has a violent beginning, but when did it come to be associated with love? The first mention of this for love, and I go to my good friends at Phrase Finder, it comes in the Indiana newspaper, the Lebanon Patriot, in June 1833. And the Phrase Finder also notes that in the quote, you'll see a lack of quotation marks, suggesting that the phrase by this time was pretty commonly used. People knew what it meant. And it said, the quote is, about 10 years ago, Lotta fell head over heels in love with a young Philadelphian of excellent family.
Okay.
So I'm going to take also that means Lebanon, Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not, because it's from the Indiana paper, the Lebanon Patriot. So
Right.
maybe I will actually read the words that are on my notes instead of speculating.
It was a good guess.
So it shows up a few more times, shows up with our good friends, or I guess our family members, the Irish, in the Irish newspaper, the Ballyshannon Herald, in September 1832. The quote is, Michael Croker swore that he was over head and heels in love with her, and that he had no business in this world unless she consented to make him happy.
So this is weird. This is weird because the first book, the first thing is, you get kicked in the face and you're head over heels, which we said doesn't make a ton of sense, but you couldn't even find much stuff about that book. So you wouldn't think that, like, why is it getting used again for, like, why is it, I don't, like, so, sometimes things are out there.
Yeah.
And so they get said and then they get bastardized because they're said so much, but you wouldn't think that one mention would lead to it being out there and used so much. I don't know. That's weird.
Well, I'm going to help tell you why. So we're tied into the state of Tennessee, which later we will speak to Brian Bates, the great comedian from Nashville. And one of the most famous Tennesseans of all is use this phrase, Davy Crockett.
The king of the wild frontier.
That's right. So in a writing that he did, in 1834, he's quoted as saying, I soon found myself head over heels in love with this girl.
There it is. That's
so
it.
Okay. So good enough for Davy Crockett, good enough for me. And that's from our good friends at Worldwide Words. And from there, it started showing up rather frequently. It ended up in one of the Oz books from L. Frank Baum, and also in one of the many sequels to Anne of Green Gables, one called Anne of Windy Poplars, which that could be fake, frankly. I haven't gotten that far into the Anne of Green Gables canon. But I will say this because it does sound like a good double entendre. Gerald's pole, which he had stuck rather deep in the mud, came away with an unexpected ease at his third tug, and Gerald promptly shot heels over head backwards into the water. And that contradicts everything else we just said. But the important thing was I got to say Gerald's pole.
I was going to say, speaking of double entendres.
Yeah.
There's quite a few in there. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so, I like this one a lot because it's, and I think the reason it makes sense now. Davy Crockett used it, and it's so expressive that even though it doesn't kind of make sense, it's still, you get this visual of your world being turned upside down. Even though your head's always above your heels, but you're like, I'm so in love with this person. I'm so whatever. I'm head over heels. It's like saying I'm madly in love. It's sort of a very big way of saying it.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. It's very hyperbolous, but even if you're not, if you're new to the English language, I think it's something you hear and it just makes sense.
Absolutely.
It just kind of tells you everything you need to know. And, I'm sure my wife was head over heels in love with me. And maybe she was kind of knocked down when she saw how big I got. Right before we got married, I timed that perfectly just to hit maximum bloat. And you had mentioned earlier a quote I had of, how
Maximum bloat.
everything looks better tan.
Yeah.
Well, guess who didn't decided also to make sure I was not tanned either at this time. So I was.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't say pasty, but
Yeah.
not tan.
I wouldn't say
but
tan either.
Maximum bloat
Maximum
sounds
bloat.
like a later movie from the Steven Seagal, catalog. It should have been.
Yeah.
But I would be remiss if I
Straight
did not
to
mention this.
Redbox.
Right. I would be remiss because this whole episode, ever since you mentioned what this first idiom was going to be, I've been hearing the first opening notes to the Tears for Fears song.
Mm-hmm.
And Tears for Fears is a band that is, I think, kind of overrated. I don't know how you feel about them. It feels like they get maybe more love than, Shout to me is kind of not a good song, but like Head Over Heels is a great song.
Yeah.
I like it, and it's definitely an earworm. So I have no insight on that song or anything, but to know it was inspired by Davy Crockett really just makes it even that much more enjoyable for me.
So, keeping with our marital theme, the next one I have is Tie the Knot.
Oh, okay. Good.
So, kind of journeying through the beginning of the relationship where you're head over heels in love and you've tricked someone into marrying you. And, even gave them the heads up that you were going to be fat and it still worked out. So now you've done that. It's time to lock it in. So tie the knot.
Yeah.
So, I think this is something everyone seems to know. Another way to say get married.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good visual. It's historically, here it's not something that people are like, oh my gosh, where did this come from? Some folk etymologies related to it of people getting a little too carried away of what that knot could mean, but we'll get down to that. So I guess this is one I think I use. I'm in that phase of life where not too many people are getting married. And I think if anything, the next phase it's going to be is like people that had kids before I did are going to start getting married, which will be weird. And hopefully it's not any of the kids I like for a while, because I don't feel like putting out any money for a bit. So, hold on. And it's not, if you're a friend or a child of one of my friends, as you know, I have many, many, many friends everywhere across the world, except for Alan. I hope Alan has kids that are getting married, because I want to go. It give me an excuse to stop over in Australia.
Yeah, maybe you'll get the invitation and go anyway.
I could do that. That would be good. There's a Tyler Perry movie in that somewhere. So tie the knot gives a pretty good visual also of being married. You're bound together. Some of the folk etymology things I came across were people ladies would have knots on their outfits to keep let's say keeps a mystery until the wedding night. So we'll just kind of let it go with that. But that's not really where it comes from. Many cultures have knots as part of symbols of marriage. So I'm going to talk about the first time it was used actually first, and then talk about some other ways in history that this has shown up. So the first time we see it used in writing actually comes back to the year way back, true back in the day, the year 1225 AD. And it's a publication called The Legend of St. Catherine. So St. Catherine being the Catherine of Alexandria, a Christian martyr, supposedly, or actually martyred in the 4th century. I say supposedly because as we talk about her story, there's some things that are pretty impressive if they did happen. Not so sure they did. So the quote from The Legend of St. Catherine, and this is me trying to translate my best Middle English, is, "Sway ye not as uncut between." So
that sounds dirty. I don't know why.
It does. It sounds really dirty.
Doesn't have anything to do
especially
with.
If you saw how "not" was spelled too, they get pretty close to giving me some other ideas of stuff. So in the context of that also, which I can't read because it is in terrible Middle English, the knot there referred to as the tie of bond of wedlock. So if we learn a little bit more about St. Catherine and what she went through, it might give us some context. So she, as I mentioned, is a Christian martyr from the 4th century. She had, from a young age, devoted herself to study, had a vision of Mother Mary and baby Jesus that persuaded her to become a Christian. As the emperor of that time, Maxentius, was persecuting Christians, she went to him personally and rebuked him. And as that happened, as a reward for that, she was put to death. So part of her her martyrdom, which I think gets into some things where I don't necessarily think are true, but or hope pretty impressive if they are, is that they as they tried to torture her, they tried to put her to a wheel, a breaking wheel. Now you might have heard the term Catherine wheel. It's named after her, and every time the wheel was put to her, the spikes would break. So one of the things I learned from this is I always thought when you hear the breaking wheel that someone would be put on a wheel and almost stretched.
Right.
And that is incorrect.
That's
Apparently, the wheel was basically a spiked wheel. That sometimes people would have the spiked wheel, they would be slammed onto it. It would be slammed onto them. They would be hung up, almost crucified on it. So they got a lot of stuff. Almost makes you think, you know, it wouldn't be that bad if I was kind of stretched out on that wheel.
Oh.
So after surviving various tortures, including denying a proposal of marriage from Maxentius, she was beheaded and passed away. And a documentation of her legend is the legend of St. Catherine, from which we get Tie the Knot. So
I have a couple thoughts on this. First of all, I don't know if you're familiar with the band Catherine Wheel. Catherine Wheel rules. They have an album called Chrome that I actually listened to a lot back in college, and sometimes I'll pull it out now. So that's exciting. Also, I really wonder if we might hear about this St. Catherine. I would love to hear if there's any tie-in with Robert Banquet, because Robert Banquet also had a Catherine the Great, one of my favorite episodes, maybe definitely top 3 episodes.
Oh, thank you.
Of is the Catherine the Great, and you find out a lot of stuff about her. So maybe St. Catherine will have some tie back to the feud between the Banquets and the sucking on chili dog. What's his name?
Oh, I'm not even going to say his name. I don't have to. I'm the one who's got to deal with Banquet when he gets unhappy, not you.
Yeah, so you know what?
I'm not going to mention he who should not be named.
We won't even
on a chili dog.
We won't even mention him. I've conveniently forgotten his last name right now. But so anyway, okay, cool. So tie the knot, and then also you said there's like some interesting folk etymologies, and I'm thinking, okay, what could it be? It's nothing to do with, obviously not, since you already said what it comes from, but nothing to do with nautical.
No, most of the kind of folk etymologies I saw related to protecting ladies until the wedding night.
Right. So nothing to do with Korean barbecue either.
No, but it did remind me of another food that freaks me out, kale. So kale doesn't make an emergence. The sucking on a chili dog of garnish or whatever kale is, but there is a term called related to tying a knot called handfasting.
Okay.
So
I have no idea what that is. I feel like I've heard it, but
yeah. Well, one of the things I like about it is instantly it sounds a little bit dirty. So step one, it passes that test for me. So we're going to go to our friends at the BBC to talk a little bit about handfasting.
I think there was a Seinfeld episode about that too, right? Handfasting.
I like that. That was good.
Thanks.
And so let's go to our friends at the BBC and an article they have from 2011 called Tying the Knot, Handfasting Through the Ages. So they give the Oxford English Dictionary definition of handfasting: to make a contract of marriage between parties by joining hands, to betroth. So generally it's something that was, for Scotland, a very long time, kind of like a way to indicate that you are betrothed or engaged, that you would have a ceremony when your hands would be bound together.
Was there like some kale in between the hands or something? Because I feel like kale had something to do with
this. Purportedly. Right? But this was something that kind of became, I think some of the folk etymology with this is it evolved to people thinking that this equaled having a handfast meant that you kind of had like a 1-year trial marriage. That you were betrothed and maybe had some rights of being married with that, but that is not true. according to the BBC. However, another great thing that came out of this is that myth was actually spread by one of our good friends, Sir Walter Scott. Who is also not Sir Walter Raleigh.
Not Sir Walter Raleigh.
Yep.
Right.
And he uses imagery in his novel, The Monastery.
Okay.
So hand fasting is something that, we still tie the knot, or we use that as marriage, but not as seen as much. However, it is something that remains for pagans. So I had mentioned kale, the devil's weed.
Yes.
And here we go that, hand fasting is something that's still very big in the pagan and Wiccan community for marriages.
Does it have anything to do with like how you see in a lot of like pagan rituals or like depictions of them, people like holding hands and sort of dancing around and stuff like that? It's totally different. Like, do you know what I'm saying? There's the whole thing
exactly. Yeah, kind of like a Wicker Man, Midsummer sort of thing. And actually, I'm looking at some pictures of that right now. So no gutted bears so far, but that's something I'm actually reviewing an article from LearnReligions.com, and they actually the article is Hand Fasting Tips: How to Have a Magical Ceremony. And we'll just, before I get off topic here, that's very interesting. We'll just leave it at that. So hand fasting, no kale, but kale's there, I think, in spirit, as we can all agree. So hand fasting, tie the knot. So what are some other ways or other times that tie the knot has been seen? It's almost countless, but I'll give a couple examples of when it was used that helped us kind of be ingrained in our lexicon. One example of the use of tie the knot that I think helped it become very famous was in a poem by the English poet and diplomat Matthew Prior.
Never heard of him.
Yeah. And it was in his humorous poem, Alma, or The Progress of the Mind. The quote is, "So to their priest, their case they tell, he ties the knot." So I bring up Matthew Prior, one, because it's an or title. So I got to say it again, Alma, or The Progress of the Mind. Mm-hmm. And I always like just looking to see what other titles that poets or writers that time will have. So here's some other titles from Matthew Prior. These are poems. So The Chameleon, an English ballad on the taking of Namur. Mm-hmm. There's another one just on the taking of Namur. I need to figure out more about this Namur. Everyone's trying to take her or him. Gonna end strong. Henry and Emma, a poem upon the model of the Nut Brown Maid.
Okay. Now we're talking. That sounds like a Bon Iver album.
Yeah. And the last two gonna end strong. Pallas and Venus. Pallas being another way to say Athena.
Oh, okay.
And then Venus Mistaken. I don't know if that's like a sequel to it.
Right.
But hey, Matthew, how many podcasts do you listen to where Matthew Prior is discussed, or someone says these words in a row upon the model of the Nut Brown Maid? Not too many. So
has to be the first.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So tie the knot, pretty obvious one. Not too much debate over where that came from or what it means. Even the folk etymology kind of makes sense. That there's always been knots as symbols of marriage and binding people and tying them, and also especially after their husband gets real fat, they're kind of stuck. They're kind of tied to that situation.
Yeah,
and they better hope he learns how to lose weight and stop. Learn how to count calories.
Hey, I'm Scott.
And I'm Erin.
And we're both kind of freaking the fuck out right now.
But you know what? It feels really good to talk it out.
Yeah, it's kind of like therapy, only with more laughs and less crying. Our podcast is called Panic at the Costco.
Each week-ish, we're joined by friends and guests to discuss quarantine life, shopping misadventures, homeschooling, conspiracy theories, and adjusting to a new normal.
Visit speakseize.com/panic to subscribe to our YouTube channel and see us dressed in our finest sweats. You can also subscribe at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast provider.
Don't forget to join the conversation on the Panic at the Costco Facebook page. And thanks for taking a listen.
To say when she's around, she steals the air from me, and it is difficult to breathe.
Speacies.
So I'm very excited to introduce our guest, comedian Brian Bates. I had the pleasure to see Brian perform last year in Charleston, South Carolina, when we were all still allowed to leave our homes and spend time with other people. So during non-pandemics, you can find Brian touring across the country, opening for comedians like Jeff Allen, Henry Cho, and Nate Bargatze. Due to COVID-19, you can currently find him in his hometown of Nashville, Tennessee, where we found you today. Brian, thank you for joining us this evening.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk to anyone besides my wife.
There you go. Well,
we qualify.
When Scott and I were putting our guest list together, we knew we were going to do the topic of marriage, and you were at the top of my list of people to reach out to.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
So I know that the first year of marriage is very exciting for everyone. And so first, congratulations. I know that you had been recently married.
Yeah.
So how's your first year of marriage treating you so far?
Well, let me ask, are you guys married?
I used to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're batting 500.
Yeah.
Well, I may want to ask you more questions then.
Yeah. Stay away from. I'll sit out this part.
First year of marriage is going great. I definitely not what we expected. So we got married January 18th.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been married almost 3 months, and I'm 48 years old. This is my first marriage. She's 43, and this is her first marriage. And we actually dated a short time, like 10 years ago, and it didn't work out. We went our separate ways, and our friends think that's a sign that it was meant to be. And we went our separate ways because we knew someday God would bring us back together. But we know we just went our separate ways because we both thought we could do better. But we were wrong. So we got back together 10 years later and got married in January. And then right after that, a tornado hit Nashville, and which forced us to go live with one of her friends for about a week while she worked from home. And then right after that, the pandemic hit. So, all our friends were like, I'm like, I've never been married. I'm used to my freedom in my single life, and she is too. And they're like, don't worry, you'll be at work during the day. You're a comedian, so you'll be at home while she's at work during the day, and then at night you'll be out doing shows. So you guys won't even see each other that much. And little we know, we are seeing each other 24/7 in my little 750 square foot, 1 bedroom, 1 bath condo.
Wow.
She's here now, of course. She's always here.
Oh yeah, But you have like marriage boot camp. This is almost like a way of like you're condensing several years of marriage just into a couple months.
That's what I keep hearing. I keep hearing that my 3 months of marriage is like 10 years normal. So I don't know. I hope so. But it's going good. In all seriousness, it's going really well. But it's a challenge. I mean,
yeah,
definitely. It's a challenge for everyone, especially for two people just got married.
Yeah. Well, I think you have another career potentially as a just veteran marriage counselor after this. Of like people are getting ready to get married, and there's always the general things I guess marriage counselors go over with you, but you can just put another couple things on the list of.
Yeah, no kidding, man. We went through premarital counseling, but they never mentioned a pandemic in the whole thing.
Yeah.
We should get our money back.
Yep.
So, Brian, are you getting material out of this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly trying and hoping. I have no idea if what's going to work because I haven't had a chance to perform in so long. And it seems like the world keeps changing so much that stuff that I wrote a month ago now already seems dated and kind of old. So by the time we finally get a chance to perform again, who knows what kind of material I have. But I'm certainly trying. I mean, I know we all have stories. I'm learning a lot about her, that's for sure. I'm learning a lot about myself, too, in fact. I've had more than one millennial that's reached out and offered to pick up my groceries. And I'm like, how old do you think I am?
Ride it for now. Take advantage of that for now. Let people buy stuff for you. That's good. Yeah, unless you need to get out.
But no, it's good. It's good. Do you guys get a lot of emails from just every business that you've ever encountered in your life, giving you their COVID-19 plan of action?
It is. it's helped comfort me during this time, that knowing that CarMax cares how I feel right now.
Yeah,
You know, that
exactly.
they're thinking about me, or
Like-
it's always the one you've forgotten that you signed up for years ago too.
I got one
Like,
from Claire's. I mean, I don't remember going to Claire's, but I certainly don't care to hear what they're planning to do to stop COVID-19.
well, if we see you in the fall touring with a bunch of earrings, we'll know that Claire's their message really meant a lot to you down there.
Yeah.
So, Brian, I know that prior to your career as a stand-up comedian, you were actually a local producer for local news for a very long time. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. You did your research.
A little bit. Try to find that line between research and not, sounding like I'm sitting outside your condo right now as you're talking.
Yeah, exactly. If you know what the weather is right here, I'm going to start getting worried. I worked at a local TV station here in Nashville, the CBS affiliate, for almost 20 years before I quit my job and went full-time into stand-up comedy. So, yeah, I was producer, among other things there. And, it's, there's some similarities to I mean, you're writing for both and editing. And so there's some similarities for sure.
Yeah. So at times like this, does it make you kind of miss, like if you could go back just for a little bit and be a producer again? Is this fun for situations like this? Is this exciting or is it more stressful?
Times like this, I wish I could go back just so I could have a paycheck and, a job, because right now I'm just sitting at home trying my best to figure out what to do. So it'd be nice to have a weekly paycheck for sure.
Yeah.
But, my friends still work in TV, and it's not like they're all going into work now. Even they've got a social distance. So a lot of people working from home and finding ways to make it work like you guys are doing.
Well, kind of. We'll see till our new coworkers come in here during. I've learned the big difference I have now is I have two coworkers that is what I call my wife and daughter, and they're lovely people, but they're both very loud. So that's been. There's a strong chance that they will be appearing at some point during one of our discussions.
I look forward to it. How old's your daughter?
She is about to turn 11, and she's awesome. She's a lot of fun. She's unfortunately listened to my smart mouth for all these years and is picking up on it and doing a pretty good job. It's one of those things I want to get mad at her, but then she'll get like a good dig in at me. And I'm like, well, that was pretty clever. So just going to downgrade your college.
Do either of you guys have marital advice for me?
Steve, you want to take this one?
That's a good one.
The married guy.
Well, you didn't do what I did, which was bulk up right before you get married. So I didn't get fat after I got married. I got fat right for the pictures, which was a regret that everyone that comes in my house gets to see when you do that. No, I think honestly, the boot camp thing that you guys are going through is good, but always tell the truth, and always know that you're wrong. And I think between those two things, that's a good balance.
If this is going to happen, I guess I'm glad, in a way, I'm glad it's happening now, because we were already changing so much our lives that it almost just seems like, okay, this is part of it. And might as well, if you got to be stuck with someone, do it while we still like each other.
Yeah, that's good. So always feel like I have to talk about sports with somebody, and especially someone that's a big Titans fan like you are.
Yeah. So
if I am correct, you have been a longtime season ticket holder, and you were at the Music City Miracle.
How do you know all this?
I'm right outside your house. I'm waving at you right now.
Just a second. All right. Just making sure. If you were out there, I was going to hang up. Yes, I am a huge Titans fan, and I was at the Music City Miracle. So that's Music City Miracle. I was the one guy that didn't fully comprehend what was going on. You guys, I assume you're familiar with the play if you're asking me about it.
Right, the lateral,
and then the guy Kevin Dyson runs down the sidelines for a touchdown. I didn't realize he was still going to be able to score, and I knew the clock was running down, and we only needed a field goal. So I was the guy yelling, "Get out of bounds! Get out of bounds!" Because I was like, he's going to get tackled. There's going to be no time left on the clock. Just get out of bounds so we can kick a field goal. I didn't fully comprehend just what was happening here until he scored a touchdown.
But you were there, and that's the important thing, is you took the time to show up and you actually have a good sports memory about your NFL team. I'm a Redskins fan, so my memory, the best part of the season is game 16 or 17 when it's over, and then we can daydream.
Well, I don't know how old you are, but I certainly remember the Redskins' heyday of 80s and 90s.
Yeah, that's when I unfortunately was a Minnesota Vikings fan. I grew up down the road in Virginia Beach, and it had to be different. That was my rebellion. It was the extent of that. But I was able to come back into the Redskins and buy low. And that's a good thing about being a Redskins fan now is you can buy. No one's going to accuse you of being on the bandwagon. It's pretty much a constant buy low.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. So you don't get in with them when they're good, and then you stick with them when they're low.
That's right. Scott's a Dolphins fan, so he taught me that lesson.
Yeah. So I became a Dolphins fan, I think, in whatever the year they went to the Super Bowl with Marino, his rookie year, whatever year that was, like 82? 82. 82 makes more sense because I would have been 4 years old and I lived in Florida, and somebody gave me a Dan Marino fan club card and I became a huge Dolphins fan. Of course, they haven't done anything since then. I mean, since 1984. So yeah. It's been painful. That's for sure.
Brian, you had asked for marriage advice, and this is a big one. I think we've just done it in action of whenever you're stuck with someone, if it was one of your wife's friends and their husbands and you don't know them, don't know what to talk about, just talk about sports. So I think this actually makes more sense that a bunch of guys got together to discuss marriage, and logically we spend the whole time talking about football.
You know what, though? My wife's family, she has two brothers. Mm-hmm. They don't care about sports at all. Mm-hmm. And so that's tough because 80% of the things I go to is about sports.
No sports at all, or just no football, or
no sports.
Into like soccer or something.
No sports at all. 80% of my conversation is sports. The other 20% were about women, so I can't do that either. So
wow,
yeah, it's tough to know what to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, if you do want to spice up Thanksgiving, start talking to her brothers about her in detail, and that could make some new memories there. It might be another. Anyway, don't do that. That was a trick question. You didn't fall for it, could you?
And I was joking when I said the other 20% was about women. But yeah. But her dad talks to me about Titans football.
There you go. Staying good with dad.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's more important anyway. So Brian, are you I know I just saw like one of Steve and I have another comedian we like, Brian Regan, he just decided he's doing I guess he's going to do some show online or whatever. Have you thought about doing any sort of different outlets for your creativity during this time, or has this sparked anything for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think all comedians are struggling right now to figure out what to do, what's the new normal. And I think Brian Regan, isn't he just releasing a comedy special that he'd already recorded?
That's exactly what it is. Yep. Because I thought it was something new, and I just off the top of my head was thinking about him, and because I saw something on Instagram, which by the way, Brian Bates Comic Instagram is very funny, and
thank you.
I would say anybody listening should follow the Instagram, and I think is that the Twitter as well. Brian Bates Comic, Brian with an I.
That's right. But yeah, I mean, I've been trying to make some videos, trying to just try to maximize my downtime. Working on my website, working on anything I can do to try to, still writing. But like I said, that's changing what sounded good a month ago, and now it kind of seems old.
Yeah.
There's going to be one type of mask we're all supposed to have, and then they're going to switch it right when your bit's about to go out about what about these 3-ply cloth masks, and then it's no longer a thing.
Right.
I know. And it's going to be so interesting when we do start back, because every comedian is going to have so much material on coronavirus, and everyone will have their own take, but still it's going to be all so similar that, I haven't done a Zoom show yet, but some of my comedian friends do shows on Zoom where people can watch online, and, you can't hear the laughter, but
have you done Zoom at all, like with like just buddies or friends or anything? Like a lot of people are doing like the virtual happy hours and stuff. I have found I'm connecting with people I haven't spoken to in a while, just because everyone's looking for someone to talk to,
I feel like it's been forever since us three have talked. It's good to have this to catch up.
That's right.
Yeah,
I've been
Good to see
I've
you.
been going the exact opposite. I'm just embracing this time to introvert and not have to interact with anybody. Now, you guys are great, of course, and I'm glad we're able to catch up again after 10 minutes. But
Yeah.
so this is a weird question. I generally like to ask everyone I come in contact with. So if I ask you about like an animal that you just dislike, what comes to mind?
Well, spiders.
Okay.
You can think of that as an animal, but spiders. And now that we're stuck at home, I see them a lot more because we're home during the day, and the exterminator is not an essential business.
Mm.
So I'm stuck with a spider here in my house, which I think might be a brown recluse.
Okay.
And so it's been going on about 4 weeks now. And 4 weeks ago, I was like, I think this might be a brown recluse. And now, 4 weeks later, I've been here so long, I think he's looking at me like, this guy might be a white recluse. He has not left at all. So I think he's as concerned about me now as I am about him.
Well, I think that's going to be my nickname. I'm going to steal from you out of this. Is my nickname will now be the White Recluse if I can make that happen. But in all seriousness, you talked about marriage advice. 80% of the value I bring in my marriage is actually killing spiders. If my wife ever got over her fear of spiders, I think that she would realize that this has been a huge mistake and that this is her time to get out. So make it, if you need help, if you need advice, you have my number now. Call me and I'll talk you through it. We'll get that for you. One of the other things we always talk about on our show, the Dutch, the Netherlands comes up quite
Why
frequently.
is that?
We looked up some phrase, went back to them, and we found out that the English didn't like them a whole lot, and that intrigued me. And for some reason, we've spent some time talking about the Dutch. A couple of reasons. One, we found if you put the word Dutch on the front of something, it might not be dirty, but it sounds dirtier than what it actually is. So that always appeals to me. But I believe you've had some, trying to get this back to marriage, I believe you have some marital experience of a sort in Amsterdam.
Yes. So about this time last year, Virginia won the college basketball national championship.
Yeah.
I don't know if you knew that or not.
Yeah, thanks.
And I won my basketball pool. And I was like, look, honey, I texted her. I was like, I won all this money. And she was like, oh, great. Maybe you can use it toward an engagement ring. She was hinting, but I'd already, what she didn't know is I already had plans in place because we were taking a trip together to the Netherlands at the end of April, so the end of this month. And end of April of last year, we took a trip to Amsterdam, and I proposed to her there in Amsterdam. Popped the question there.
Congrats.
And it seemed all to work out. And that would have been a very awkward rest of the trip if it didn't work out. But if she's playing the long con to let you down gently, she's doing a bad job of it because she did marry you. So I think that I
waited till late in the week just in case. Don't want to run the whole trip.
Yeah.
I really couldn't find a place to do it. Have you guys ever been to Amsterdam?
Have not.
No.
I'd never been, so I didn't know where I was going to do it. I knew we were doing this trip. It's getting late in the week. And I still haven't done it, but the last night there, we went to the Anne Frank house. And if you haven't been to the Anne Frank house, it's very powerful and very moving. But it's also very sad. And when we left, she had a little tear come down her eye. I was like, you know what? So I got down on one knee, which wasn't easy because my legs were so sore because we've just been climbing up that attic. And I said, I don't want to hide my love for you anymore in the attic of my heart.
Yeah.
Okay, none of that's true.
And now she's hiding out with you in your.
That's right.
Both
hiding from the spider.
Right. Yeah. She's still got a while to go to catch up with Anne Frank. But I
Pretty,
wanted that to be true. I really did. It's like
I proposed to her before we went to the Anne Frank house. So she was still way too excited to be at the Anne Frank house. In a way, it was worse. It was inappropriate.
Awesome.
All right, Brian, we gotta have to let you close. That's a great one. I want that to be the final thing. So, Brian, if you guys like Brian Bates as much as we do, you can find him more about him at brianbatescomedy.com. Twitter and Instagram at Brian Bates Comic. I think this is good,
Yeah.
Brian. Thank you so much.
Thank
we
you,
really
Brian.
we really
Yeah.
appreciate it, and I hope you guys get to get out there and have some fun again. And honestly, congratulations on your marriage. That's
congrats.
awesome. That's a great story. And if I would like, I want to see the Hallmark movie with you at the Anne Frank house. I think there could be a new, it's a whole other career for you to maybe pick up on with that.
Hey, this is Scott. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Origin of Species. Special thanks to our guest, Brian Bates. Head over to his website, brianbatescomedy.com, and follow him on Instagram and Twitter at Brian Bates Comic. Also, make sure you go to our website, speaksies.com, and check out some of our other shows. So, True Facts with Robert Bankett just dropped a new hilarious and informative episode, and Panic at the Costco, which is our new video podcast where my friend Aaron and I chat with very interesting people about all things pandemic and being quarantined. So we hope you enjoy that as well. And we hope everyone is staying safe and making the best of this time. As always, thanks so much for listening.
Lots of water spilling over.
I said, I don't want to hide my love for you anymore in the attic of my heart.